coming. We're very excited about today. And before we get into our presentation, our discussion, I want to take a moment to acknowledge and welcome our sponsors. Fidelity National Home Warranty, Robin and Mia are here, and Wells Fargo and Mirage as well. Before we introduce our very special guest today, I'd like to give them an opportunity to, maybe a 2-minute blurb and introduce yourself. And
sure, I'll go first. I'll come up here so you don't have to turn around. Oh, I'm sorry. Robin and I with Fidelity Home Warranty, we just wanted to let you know that we're always here for you and your clients. If your clients have any questions about, issues going on in their home, any claims, please have them reach out to us. We do have our 1-800 number and our quick claim option that they can submit a claim online. But Robin and I are always here to help you and your clients. Even till after close of escrow, we're with your clients for a whole year if they choose to renew. For you agents, if you ever need assistance with placing orders, or if you have questions about coverage regarding our home warranty, please reach out to Robin or myself. We're always here to help. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Murad Rahib with Wells Fargo Private Mortgage Banking here in Orange County. Very excited to be here to hear from Tim. Just a very quick update about Wells Fargo. We just recently launched a 10% down payment program up to $2 million loan amount with no mortgage insurance. So with affordability right now, that would be great for someone with higher earnings but maybe didn't get a chance to save that 20% down payment yet. Again, up to $2 million, no mortgage insurance. Reach out to your local mortgage rep with Wells Fargo and let us know how we can help. Have a great day.
All right, without further ado, welcome Tim Smith. So, I'll be kind of moderating, if you want to call it that today. And kind of to kick us off, I mean, you're such a household name in this business, in this area, and I feel like everyone has such a familiarity with you, but maybe not everyone knows how you got started in the business and what initially attracted you to real estate. So maybe you can kind of elaborate on that.
I mean, so when I was young, we probably just didn't have a lot, and so I felt that I had a better than average skill set with people and sales, and so as I was going to college, I was not really looking to go to college to work for somebody. I was trying to find the opportunity, and when I had an opportunity after my first year to be a runner up in Salt Lake City for now one of the biggest commercial brokers, I went to school full-time, or I went to school Tuesday, Thursdays, all day and night, and started working for him full time, and I just fell in love with it, and I saw like a path to make money, and I think that the biggest reason is I wanted to make the most money I could with the skill set that I had, and so I worked in commercial for a year in Utah, fell in love with it, but didn't want to stay in Utah, and so I moved back here, and I started working for a commercial broker in Newport, and it was great organization. There were 5 older guys in their 60s, but they wanted to go to lunch and play golf. We were really looking to build. We had a medical office division and a hotel division. And as much as I loved it, in like late '99, early 2000, one of our clients that we had sold a couple of hotels for called and said, "Hey, I got a 10-10 exchange. Can you help me do some like residential income stuff?" I talked to my broker, I spent 4 weeks with him, and I knew I wanted to make a change. Like I saw the opportunity in residential, the deals were quicker, the commissions were bigger. Like on a commercial deal, you'll work on it for 14 months and then there's 9 guys splitting like 75 basis points, which is good, but it just wasn't the excitement I was looking for when I saw just kind of the level of professionalism in most real estate agents. I thought this was a real opportunity, but because I had worked my first year twice in real estate and made very little money those first 5 years, I went and I got all of the title reports for the biggest realtors at the time, and I went and basically Ron Millar at the time was one of the top, and he was doing commercial stuff, so I made an agreement with Ron, worked for him for 2 years. Then he left to start Strata. He's like, you wanna come? And that's when I realized I wanna do my own thing.
It's a natural segue, actually. I mean, you kind of already described your first year, but what would you categorize as like the biggest lesson that you learned that you can still take with you all these years later in those first years?
Well, the funny thing about Ron, and Ron would say this, I was like, I wanted listings anywhere. And he's like, no, I don't really wanna go there, I'm in Newport Beach. And so I'm like, no, you have to come because you're the guy that has a track record, so I need you to get me the listings. And so I'd have to like twist his arms to drive up to Tustin Ranch or Coto de Paz or San Clemente or Corona. And he's like, we don't want these listings. I'm like, I want these listings. These are sellable. Everybody in Newport Beach wants 30% too much, right? So I guess the lesson for me, I always had the ability to connect and get appointments, but I didn't grow up in Newport. I didn't have the relationships there, and so I would go where I could get the business. And then every relationship and transaction, the goal was to get more. And so I found myself all over Orange County. And what's interesting is anybody could do the business between 2000 and 2007. Whoever did the business, like it was, I mean, you just had to barely have a heartbeat to do the business. Like I had a friend that I went to high school with, his name was Squidlow, that's what he called him. And he lived with his mom, and her name is Poshi, and he owned 6 houses, and he had no income. And so I'm like, this was the time when anybody could get, so in 2007, 2008, I still remember I had probably a dozen listings, and I was just spending more on marketing, and I wasn't selling anything, because it was like a free fall. And so I went to a Tom Ferry seminar, and I'm sure people have heard this story. And I was in the back of the room, and I still remember he was saying, do you find yourself stressed out? Do you find yourself using one pill? And I thought he was gonna give me a prescription for a pill. But then at the end of it, like I had like a born again, I'm like, dude, I need to start coaching. And I wanna coach with you. And at the time, the reason I went there, because my assistant at the time, one of the things for me is I don't like to pay bills because it makes you feel rich or poor. I'm like, it affects my performance. But at the time, she's like, we gotta figure something out. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, next month you can either pay your rent or you can pay me, but you can't do both. And she wasn't very good at math, so she was saying that. So I had my born again moment with Tom Ferry. I walked right up to him after I said, hey, I want to start coaching. He's like, okay, I'll get you a coach. I'm like, no, I want to coach with you. And so it was $3,000 a month to coach with Tom at the time. And that was more than my assistant and my rent. I'm like, let's do it. And so we went for, I think I went for 90 days without a deal. That was the longest, and I think even Tom at the time was like, maybe I should give you like, I think he was like questioning. His whole thing is you only value what you pay for, and I was paying and I was doing everything that he was telling me to do, but I think it took us 90 days to start doing deals, but our first lesson was, we need to look through your list of inventory, and you need to go re-interview your sellers. If they're not sellers at the new market price, you need to fire them. And so I still remember the first one I went to, and as a salesperson, you're looking for a yes, you're not looking to fire your clients. So I still remember I was walking up to 59 Canyon Creek, and I like got nervous, I'm like, I can't do this. So I went and called him, he's like, just get in there, and just have like, just be honest with me. So I sat down with a couple, and I just said, hey, this is where we're at in the market, this is what your house will sell for, are you guys sellers there? They're like, no. And I said, well, you know what, I think it's a pass for me. And so I let it go. And I went through my whole inventory and dwindled down to like 2 or 3 listings, and at the time, there was this new thing called a short sale. And I don't know what it was, but none of the agents in Newport wanted to do short sales because it was like, it made you look like an REO agent. And I was like, no, I don't wanna do short sales. And we started going through all of the things that I love and hate about real estate. Like number 1, they always want you, so you're limited to how many listings you can take. They always want me to spend a ton on marketing, because that's what we do. And you can only handle so many listings with the showings. And the greatest things like, but just picture this. You're gonna have, and then you have the ups and downs. You're rich, you're poor, closing, your pipeline goes up and down, so he's like, let's just think about this. In 2 years, if you had a pipeline of 50 escrows, I understand that they may not close for 9, 10, 11, 12 months, because the sellers, this is all they wanted. Price it at whatever you wanna price it, don't do any marketing, do one showing, get multiple offers, and then let's just negotiate it. And so we jumped heavy into short sales, and I still remember we had this campaign where we sent like a perforated check to them, and we were getting calls everywhere, and at the time, I think there was one time we had like 63 escrows that were gonna be closing, and we were doing probably 30% of the high-end short sales between San Clemente and Sunset Beach, because that's all it was selling. And so when it came time in 2012, I'm like, well, how do I transition out of this? That's when I got into film. And that's where we really started kind of our media and marketing company.
How many people were working for you when you had 60 escrows?
I mean, I got a lot of people work, the funny thing is I was handling, it was so easy to handle them. And so it's like I had a full-time kind of attorney that was on staff, he would negotiate them. And the other thing is, we were double-siding all of them. Because the buyers knew that they had to come to you, we would do one showing window, we'd get 10 offers. If people backed out, you would just go down through the offers. So it was really like, manpower-wise, we didn't really need that many people. But I probably had 5 or 6 people working for me at the time.
On that note, so would you consider yourself ever being like a quote-unquote solo agent, and in those formative years, when did it click that you always wanted to have a team around you, and how did you go about developing that sort of idea?
Well, so the reason for the team, number one, I could always get more listings than I could handle them the way I wanted to handle them. So in the beginning, I'd have agents that I would give listings to because I'd want them to work a very specific way. And then it just kind of grew. But I would say anybody in the business, like, you gotta take the risks. Every person I've ever hired, I thought I couldn't afford them. And now I realize I couldn't afford not to do it. So whether it's your first assistant, or your listing coordinator, or marketing director, you should be, there's 2 things in this business that pays, appointments and contracts. And that's all I do. I don't even email anymore. Like, I haven't gone to my desktop and email. I have my assistants looking at my email. I mean, there's times when I'll have emails, but it's just like, that is not the best use of my time. And so right now, it's negotiation, it's appointments, it's a contract.
So how many listing appointments would you estimate you'll go on this year?
Last year, I went on 272. This year, it's tighter, it feels tighter, but I would say somewhere between 175 and 225.
And those presentations, are they canned? Is there a formula that you kind of always emphasize and revert back to?
Well, so in my 20s, I used to go in there and just pitch and talk and listen and not listen. And then in my 30s, you just pitch and you don't know if they're, and I go through. Then my 30s, I started really like using data, and then in my 40s, I started listening, and I have a story for everything. I went on a listening appointment with Hunter yesterday. He's like, do you know you never even talked about our group or what we did? I'm like, did they sign the listing? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you don't need to tell people things they don't need to hear. And the more you like really ask the right questions and you're really listening, people are looking for somebody that can hold their hand and walk them through a transaction that they can't do. And so it's like every listing presentation is different, but I would say the thing that's the biggest difference now is I have a story for absolutely every objective, every question, whatever it is, that will help people understand our operations through that story.
And in that evolution of how you approach listing appointment, is there the most pivotal factor? What's the most important thing that you sort of evolved to bring to a listing appointment?
Well, so what I tell people now is I'm not a real estate agent. I am a marketing company that sells real estate. Because is the thing that, and again, I'm not just bragging, so if, these are the things I go through, so I think it's important, the data has always been very important to me. So in the last, since 2022, of all the listings that we've sold, we've averaged 97% sales price, seller's price. If you take the average of my competition, which is everybody else, it's 85%. So what we're doing is getting 12% more. And then people say, well, what are you doing? And so I go through, number one, the first thing is to get the house show perfect, to make the best offering you can, and that generally entails some sort of staging, painting, even to the point we'll remodel homes to get them show perfect. So that's phase one. You gotta have the best offering within the marketplace. And we've done a really good job. I think right now we have 10 to 12 homes that we're doing some sort of remodel to get them ready to market. Then the next piece is creating marketing that's not just for the launch, but for the first 3 months so you can time release stuff, and figuring out digital strategies to get it outside of Orange County. My biggest challenge in getting the highest price has always been local agents and local buyers. And so if you can find people from outside the area that don't have visibility to all of the historic data, and think about it for yourselves. I am never gonna be the buyer that pays the most in my own neighborhood, because I've seen everything. I'm like, I just can't pay that number. Like, I've seen every comp, it's not worth 1,100 a foot. It's worth 800 a foot. This is why. But if you have somebody coming from LA or Northern California that all they're really seeing is what their money can buy them, you can get them to pay 1,100 a foot. And so the key is marketing, and then I think the biggest difference, and I think the reason we lose so few listings now, is seller communication. Over communicating is the key, especially in markets when things slow down. So it's a requirement that I talk to every one of my sellers every week. And we try to do it at the same time, and we focus on 3 things. This is what we're doing marketing wise, here's the analytics, and here's how much I'm spending. Because I want them to know I'm spending money, because if their house isn't selling, it's because it's overpriced, it's not my problem. Second thing is, this is what's happening in the market, and this is what's happening specifically in your market. And then the third thing, because you're running and gunning all week, is this is what's happening with the buyers that have been through since last week. And so then you can recap, not that you're not giving them updates, but you don't always have how everybody feels at that specific moment.
How do you feel like your proposed films that you've made for marketing have benefited you?
I mean, in the beginning, that's a great question. So in the beginning, when we started, I still remember the first one we did at our first listing in Irvine Cove. And it was so hard to get people to come make films in 2012. So I got a company from LA, and it took like 8 weeks to film it and deliver the film. And that's just too long. No seller's gonna be okay waiting 8 weeks. But in the beginning, what the films did is they sold the sellers, not the house. And so then I created a film, and everybody's like, well, I want that on my house. And my biggest challenge with films is not every house is film worthy. And everybody's like, oh, I want that film on my house. I'm like, your house, like, I don't think a film's gonna help your house. So, but since then, with a lot of the digital strategy we use, we've had, I mean, I would say every record, 90% of the records we've set, the film was the bait that got the buyer to come to the house.
And on the point of marketing, would you say that your outbound marketing in any capacity is your #1 lead source? Or would you define that from a different source?
I don't know if I'd say it's the #1 lead source. I think my #1 lead source now is, I think the biggest thing that we can do as real estate agents right now is build up. Right? And you look at like all the TV superstars, whatever, you know, we had an opportunity to do a show in 2015, I didn't wanna do it. In retrospect, I probably should have, because that brand creates so many opportunities. And it's funny how little I compete against like Altman or Oppenheim or some of these other guys. It seems like they're being the people that aren't connected to Newport, but know their show. It's like, I've only competed against them like a handful of times. And so it's like, how's that possible that they're getting all of these opportunities with people I don't even know? And so I would say building your brand is the biggest, but I do think it's brought us a tremendous amount of leads.
And so, on the topic of brand management then, what are your daily disciplines, and your sort of daily habits? Are you constantly planning marketing and advertisement every single day? You're looking ahead, what you're currently actively, we'll say, recording or pre-production, or is your day segmented and time blocked in a different manner? Is there a component for marketing every single day?
I mean, I don't know if there's we just have so many new listings, the marketing component is always talked about every day, but everybody thinks I love to be on film, I actually don't. I do it because it works and because I'm okay at it, and because we found we get great engagement, but it's like a grind to me when I have to leave appointments to go film for 2 hours, and I'm just trying to rush through it to try to get to my next appointment. But it's it's just one component that I think if you're not doing it, I mean, you're really gonna lose relevance in this business.
So if there were only maybe, we'll say a few, let's say 3 things that you could choose to do to generate business, what would they be?
So I did an open house for the first time, I don't do open houses anymore, 2 weeks ago, loved it. I love doing open houses, but I made a commitment to my wife. Well, my wife married a guy that worked 7 days a week. And that was the deal. Then when we had kids, she's like, "You're not working 7 days a week anymore." I'm like, "Well, I didn't sign up for that." And she said, "Why don't you just go back to Tom Ferry and figure out how to work with us?" So I did, and so that's why I developed a team. Now I have 2 full-time showing agents that only work on my business. And the funny thing is, I used to be afraid to tell people, I'm not gonna be at the showings. I'll be at second showings, I'll be at some showings here and there, but you don't want me at the showings. And then as I explained why, you want me on the phone, talking to agents, working the deals while they're doing showings. Half the time I go to a showing, I don't wanna open the doors. I don't wanna turn all the lights on. I don't wanna light the candles. I don't wanna take all of the protective covers off. I just want them to come in, and then 3 minutes in, I can tell if they're gonna buy or not. And so I'm ready to usher them out. My 2 showing agents are like concierge. They're there, welcome service, the music's on, everything's open. I don't even like to open the doors because I've had too many experiences where you can't shut them. You get the big sliding doors, and then whatever lift and tilts don't work, and you're like, this is terrible, right? So, I don't remember the rest of the question, but I would say, what was the rest of the question?
The 3 things that you would choose to generate business.
Oh, so going back to the open house, I love the prospect. I absolutely love the prospect, and it's one of those things where if you're not, and I think that we all think we prospect more than we do because we ask somebody one time and we thought about it 100 times in our mind. We're like, I tried that call 100 times, but I love the prospect. And it's funny because my wife, over the last 13 years, we just entered our teenage years of marriage, so now we make less little mistakes, not big ones, right? So we're moving into the golden years. She's like, it's crazy how shameless you are. And I'm not really shameless, but it's just I could ask Dawn, how many houses do you own on Bow Island? 2. Have you had any thoughts of selling either of those houses? No? Is there a number that if you could get, you would sell? I mean, so it's that's my prospect. And then he says, well, if I could get that, I'm like, well, what would you do if you sold one? And then all of a sudden he's like, well, I've always wanted a house in the desert. And all of a sudden, if you can take that conversation and actualize it, everybody's a prospect. And now I do more with my kids. I don't miss anything. I coach all their teams. Everywhere I go, I do business because I'm not afraid to ask if you've had any thoughts of selling, because everybody has. I have houses I've thought of selling, and I'm having current thoughts of selling, but I need a realtor to come and lead me. I know I'm not going to do it for myself. John Yasta so-and-so's my realtor because my wife fired me. And she's like, you have no time for us. All you do is other clients, so John Yasko is my realtor. Because I don't have time to look for myself and do it, but like, we're working on opening an office in Park City. I'm trying to figure out how to buy a place up there, and I have to sell a place, so if somebody could get
I have a
leads-
house up there.
Okay, so you should talk.
It's going up for sale.
Okay, so,
Colleen Brennan.
so anyway, so it's like, that's, I mean, the key, and it's just like, we'll be at a dinner, and I'll ask somebody that, and then all of a sudden, maybe it's my approach, they wanna talk to me about it. And then the other thing that I have in me, because I'm so busy, and people are like, oh, you never call me back, I'm like, well, did you call me for a deal, or did you just call me to shoot the bull? Why did you call you to shoot the bull? Well, that's why I didn't call you back, right? And it's like, I know how busy I am, and so I have no qualms about calling somebody 7 days in a row. And just, and like, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I get it, I know how busy you are, but just wanna chat. Where I think a lot of people, it becomes like a rejection thing, right?
Yeah, I think leading that into, like, what would you say to agents that are scared to make calls or door knock or, you know, when prospect in general? What would be an objection?
Well, so I think the other key is law of exposure, right? If you're afraid to make calls, how do you find yourself in environments where you're around people? So I was a public school kid, terrible student, barely got through college, wasn't my thing. My kids go to Harbor Day for one reason. They could go to Mariners and I could sell $3 million houses where there's more competition in Mariners and Dover Shores than anywhere in the world, which I can't get a listing for 2.5% because everybody will do it for 1%. I'm like, I'm not working. Or I could go to Harbor Day and make my influence there and sell $20 million houses. And so the first year when Brixton was there as a kindergartner, I went up to this head schoolmaster. I said, hey, just so you know, any house I sell for the community, I'm gonna give a 10% donation to the school. And so then it started working, and then by the end of this first year, I said, but if you ever introduce me to anybody, I'll give a 25% referral fee to the school, because I'm not gonna donate to a private school. I'm gonna donate to Miracle for Kids, Chalk, whatever. But now we've become one of the families that donates the most, but what nobody understands, she's working for me. And I still remember the first check that we sent. She called me up and she said, I think you sent me the wrong amount. And I'm like, well, what did I send you? She's like, 117,000. And I'm like, I need like 600 grand on top of that. So it's like, we're at Big Canyon. I never play golf. I could be at Mesa Verde and be selling $1.5 million houses or $20 million houses. Because that exposes me to people, and as my brand has grown, it's been helpful for all those people, and there is something about nepotism. Like, you go to those schools, you go to those clubs, they want to use somebody within those clubs. And if you're the best option, you're gonna get the most opportunities.
Talk about exposure, you did that water skip cleaner in the back bay, and I know you put your name up there, how's that worked out for you?
So it's
It's
just,
a win-win.
it's
Are
just
you doing
another
good
branding
and you're
thing.
putting your name
It wasn't my idea. Greg Blake, used to be my former boss in commercial real estate, now works in our group, that was totally his idea, so I'm not taking, but when he told me, I'm like, that's genius. Now, have I gotten deals from it? I don't know. But I've gotten a million texts of people, and I have a guy, the boat's called, so if you don't know, we bought a trash boat that goes through the harbor, and it's just wrapped in Smith Group stuff that says, keeping your waters clean, who you work with matters, right? And so, and then I found the perfect captain that's all he wants to do. The boat's called the Good Sea Meriton. And so he's helping people out there, passing out cards. But if you look at, the total cost of the boat was $131,000. It's probably $100,000 for the full-time crew. So $220,000 a year. My thought is, how many postcards do I send, and what's their shelf life? I need one deal a year, and especially on the bay, one deal every 5 years. And so I would say, have I gotten deals from that I know for sure? No, but it's definitely helped branding and other opportunities.
You're doing something good.
Yeah, give back.
With that in mind, what would you say is maybe it's a fourth attempt at a pun, what's the undercurrent of your marketing strategy, both social media, print, just in general? Is there a guide that you always
Well,
sort
so,
of guide your
I
factory?
mean, if you look, and I hate when people talk about marketing, they chalk it up, oh, it's just branding, right? The marketing that I spend the most money on is to try to activate buyers or activate sellers. So with the thought in mind, how could I get more buyers from this? How could I get more sellers from this? But yes, when you're doing everything, you're chalking a lot up to branding. But it's amazing because like the kids at my kid's school, like they've all seen Teach Me How to Duffy. Like I walk around there and my daughter thinks I'm a celebrity. We'll go to a grocery store and so you're building something that's creating opportunity and notoriety. And if you always do the right thing and you do your best, you're just gonna have more opportunities. And so that's a risk I'm always willing to take is spend. And all my agents are always like, will you do this campaign? Because our marketing split is consistent with whatever their split is. So I pay whatever that portion is. And I'm like, I'm willing to do anything you wanna do, as long as it's not, we start and stop, right? Because campaigns take time. So just make sure that if you're gonna do this, we're gonna do this consistently till we see an ROI on it, and we're gonna continue to adjust it to make sure that we can.
Is exposure and, investment spend the recommendation you would make to either a newer agent or maybe a struggling agent?
I mean, you can only do what you can do. So it's like, I was an open house guy. I used to knock doors every day. And that was like, and knocking doors is probably the most ineffective way to find deals, because like, for every 20 doors you knock, you talk to one person. But what it does is just teaches you to build that muscle of prospecting. And so you don't miss the opportunities that are the easy ones when you're out there doing the hard ones. And I used to sit on open houses. And I would say, for a new agent, I would do open houses from like 10 a.m. till 8 p.m. for one reason. I wanted the sellers seeing that I was there at 5, 6, 7, 8, and they can size you up in 30 seconds. And if you didn't know, I mean, half the agents don't even know what they don't know, but if you don't know every comp, every builder, every family, you've already failed. So it's like knowledge is power. And when I was really started, back in the day when Shady Canyon was started, that's where Ron was working, I would sit on open houses and I knew every single homeowner, because it's public records. I knew every builder. I would talk about these people like I knew them and I'd never met them, right? But what did that do to the people walking in? I still remember I was in an open house in Shady Canyon in probably 2002 or 3. And some guy walks in with his agent to look at a house. And so we're talking about it and he starts asking questions. And I'm not trying to boast, but I knew everything. And he ran Morgan Stanley worldwide. And I could tell in the 40 minutes, like, I knew he was gonna call me. Like, I just knew it. Cause it's like, he's like, well, do you know this? And he was asking me people that he knew in there. I knew all of them. And then he's like, but do you know him? I'm like, well, right? And so he called me the next morning and he's like, hey, just so you know, you're gonna be my new agent. And so I've sold him 2 houses, but he's probably referred me $2 billion in real estate.
Wow.
And he refers me and I make sure I've only shit the bed on one of his clients. And I make sure that everybody he refers me, I hit it out of the park. And so it's fun for him. He's my sponsor at Big Canyon. He's a former past president. He's like the mayor of kind of Laguna Beach, lives in Irvine Cove. And even to this day when I talk to him, it's funny because it's almost like Pavlov's dogs. After we're talking, I say, hey Mike, do you have any thoughts of selling? No, Timmy, I don't. And then I said, well, do you know anybody that does? And I'm like, you don't have to introduce me. Just, do you know anybody that does? And he'll rattle off, well, this one's getting divorced, this person's that, and then you go after him. You have your ISA column, you send him a general package, and I'll go through that question, and half the time I just have to like end with a pause and he's like, do I know anybody that's thinking of selling? What do you think? What do you think? What do you think? And he'll rattle off names. So it's like, and the funny thing is, so we sold him a place in the desert last year, and he called me probably a month ago, and I'm like, isn't it time to downsize? Because he just built a house in Irvine like 6 years ago, and he said, I've been thinking about it. Right? So it's like, ask everybody that. I can't tell you how many times I've asked somebody that I sold a house to a month ago, and they're like, you know what, we don't really like it, we are kind of thinking of selling. Like, well, let's talk about that. What does that look like? May not be real, but let's talk about it.
With market knowledge, the data in mind, how do you personally become like a market expert? How do you approach that?
I mean, that's just, you have to constantly be looking at comps, you have to know everything.
Is that a daily discipline? Like you wake up every day and
It's a
I'm
day,
looking at this
it's
report?
like an all-day discipline. It's just like, you're looking at this, I'm asking who bought this, who sold this, what the average price per square foot is. I think it's important, like, more than ever. You know, my pitch right now, whether it's true or not, I'm gonna make it true. So if you look at the last 10 elections as it pertains to Newport Beach or coastal Orange County real estate, there's been one election where prices have gone down. Which election was that?
Carter,
This is a really easy question.
the crash, around
The crash, 2008. It was like, the writing was on the wall before that election ever happened. In the 9 others, we've seen acceleration in appreciation within 12 months, not always right away, between 6 and 27%. Right, so every post-election year is big. This year, as Don and I were just talking, there's so much uncertainty before the election, and now it seems like there's just as much uncertainty, so we have this like start-stop. But make no mistake about it, this will be one of the best years Newport Beach has ever seen for real estate because of one reason. What's the black swan of this year? The fires. I think our group's done 76 leases in the last 9 months, or 2 months. It's been 11 weeks, I think. And we're doing most of them for free for one reason. We don't make any money off leases anyway. If we throw them a bone, who are they gonna remember when it's time to buy? And I've been talking to the people, helping them get into school, doing whatever I can, because they are going to become part of our community. I was talking to Ron Graves last night, whose house burned down. He was looking for a place here before, and I was like, well, tell me what's the most recent update. Nothing's happened. Like, absolutely nothing's happened. You still can't clean your lot. You still can't go to your lot without a police escort. The second wave of people we're seeing now are the people of houses that didn't burn, which the smoke damage in a lot of them is worse. And maybe you don't have smoke damage, but your community's impacted. What happens when they start redoing utilities? What happens when they start rebuilding? It's gonna be a war zone there for 10 years. So these are the people that you guys should really be talking to and thinking about, because they will be buyers. And as soon as the market takes off, which it will, and I think September, October will be the big months this year, we're gonna get to that same thing that happened in 2021 after COVID, right? Where we hit under 1,000 listings, and every cell became incrementally higher because of the supply-demand imbalance. And that's what's gonna happen. So plan on it. So stock up the listings. And even though you can't get showing, just have your weekly seller calls, because they will go.
Right now, what are you seeing that's selling, and then what are you seeing that's not selling in coastal Orange County?
So if you've seen this little weird blip, every family neighborhood, and this is another good data point. So let's say 1 Ford Road, Bonita Canyon, Port Streets, Dover Shores, Newport Heights, all of the stuff that's been sitting last year between 6 and 9 has sold. Right? So it's like, that's where we always see the surge first, because families have to sell, move regardless, because they're growing, downsizing, whatever. So that's where you've seen it. Like, if you look in Dover Shores, there's 5 homes in escrow between 6 and 7 million that wouldn't have sold last year. So it's like, that's where it starts.
Are you seeing a lot of the people
cause I've heard this from different agents that focus up in LA, there's so many people now that are starting to look at, obviously coastal Orange County, but are you starting to see that surge in like Newport? Cause I've heard a lot of people that were in Palisades, some in Altoona, but mainly Palisades, have really started concentrating
So
here.
they're leasing, I only know of three, and I could, this is just my peripheral, I only know of 3 buyers that have bought that were actually fire victims. But I mean, think about what they're going through right now. They got their kid in school here, they're trying to figure out how to get their rebuild not just their house, but their lives there. And they're loving it down here. And so I'm seeing now people that have houses that weren't even in the area that are moving down here because their friends are moving down here. And so it's only a matter of time because we're in kind of this like weird, no demand. I mean, I have listings that I haven't shown in 3 months. And those sellers' calls, it's like a root canal. And I love it when they cancel. Right? When they're like, oh, we don't need to talk to them. I'm like, oh. Because they're like, what should we do? What should we do? I'm like, well, this is how much money I'm spending. What do you want to do? Like, maybe you want to lower the price. And then you say that, and all of a sudden it puts them on their heels a little bit. Well, no, let's just see what happens. If you're really sure that, you know, the demand's gonna pick up, let's just see what happens.
With all the, like, the deep market knowledge that you're constantly surveying, is there a specific data point or a specific, element that you're always looking for when you're, you know, studying a local market?
Well, so every day I look at how many active listings there are in Orange County, because I think this is a really important thing to know. And today, I mean, depending on how you look at it, I mean, if you're just doing single family, there's somewhere around 3,500. The 3 years pre-COVID, we were at 7,500. 2021 and 22, we went under 1,000. So as soon as we get down to that under 2,000, I think that's where you're gonna see the market run.
And then I have just a handful of questions left, and we can maybe open it up to the audience, but, how do you handle stress and maintaining?
Yes.
In general, you know, maybe through tough deals or, you know, balancing work and life as tough as that can be sometimes.
Okay, so I'll tell a story. So I was up in Park City. So TJ Walsh, who used to work for me for a long time, he moved to Park City. He's like, when are you gonna open the Park City office? I grew up in that area. I've always wanted to. I wanna spend half a year there. I said, you get to the top, being the top agent for Cole Banker, and I'll open the office. He calls me a month and a half ago, top agent Cole Banker. So I go up there. We sign a few listings. And then I start talking, and I find out that there's a ton of developers here, John DeVarian, David Close, all these guys I know that have multiple spec homes they're building up there. So I go back there Wednesday, Thursday, we probably went to 27, 28 opportunities to sell. Now, sometime within the next 2 years, I was telling one of my clients that we've done 3 transactions where he's like, you know, and I knew he was building a house there and I wanted to see it, and I said, hey, I wanna go buy your house, right? And so he bought in Promontory, which when I was a kid, this was shit land. Like, this was like the dump. I can't believe houses up there for what, that was one of the things where locally, we'll never have the perspective, but now as a dad, I get it. It's an hour and 55-minute flight, it's 30 minutes, they get not that good of snow, and it's cupcake skiing, but what else do families want? That's what they want, right? So I totally miss that one. But anyway, so I go and I see his house, and I'm just shocked. It's like, I've never seen it. It looked like Iron Man's house, right? Like legitimately, it was the most expensive construction, and it was framed with windows. They were starting drywall. And I was talking to his contractor, and I'm just like, this guy he's so mellow. And at the end, I'm like, dude, how do you do it? Because I know he's built all of the big houses up there, and he's like, you're like impervious to being rattled. And I know this clientele, and I know there's no way you're gonna be in this house, he's gonna be in this house this December. And he just like, I don't know, it's just like, nobody's gonna die. And that's kind of been my thing, it's like, we're selling houses. Like at the end of the day, we're all gonna get losing listings, we're gonna get fired, people are gonna get upset at us, but you just kind of do your best. But now in my 40s, if I don't work out or do something in the morning, I'm just not at my best game. And if you you wanna go deeper than that, I think from like a personal growth standpoint, so my father passed away a month ago. And so, as a kid, he left my mom for another woman. And that was a very difficult thing. We were Mormon, he was a bishop. This was something that was like, this was something you didn't do. And I found myself in my teens, like really like, I've just never been a depressed person, but I found myself like not wanting to get up and work out, not wanting to get up. And I found myself thinking about this situation more than I wanted to, and it was weighing me down. And I was surfing one day, and that's what I would do at night to just get my mind right. And this guy paddles up to me, his name's R.Q. Shute. And I knew his son, and I knew he had the prettiest daughters I've ever seen, like way out of my league, but they were just beautiful, right? But he was just one of those guys that kind of irritated me. And so he paddles up to me, and we're at Doheny, and there's like no waves. And so I'm just sitting there looking for a wave so I could just get out of this conversation. I'm like, Tim, what's up? And he was with his son Taylor. I'm like, hey, RQ, what's up, Taylor? I'm just looking over, like, come on, Seth, come in. You know Doheny, they just don't come in that often. And so he's like, hey, Tim, we were at a rattlesnake farm last week. You ever been to a rattlesnake farm? I'm like, no, RQ, I've never been to a rattlesnake farm. He's like, it's the weirdest thing. He's like, they do this little experiment where they put a pitchfork over a baby rattlesnake's head, not to hurt it, just to hold it, so, and then they dangle a baby chick just outside its grasp, and within 45 seconds, that snake dies. And then he takes the wave that I was supposed to take, but cause I was listening to him, I'm like, that was the weirdest story. Like, what was that? So then I'm like, oh my gosh, he's paddling back out. I gotta get away, but he took the only wave of the set, so then he comes back out. And now I feel like he's patronizing me, and I'm just kind of irritated. Like, I'm like in one of those phases of my life that I was just not my best. And he's like, why do you think that rattlesnake died too? I'm like, I don't know, RQ. Why don't you tell me? He's like, rattlesnakes build up an immunity to the small amount of venom that they secrete when they bite something. But if they continue to secrete it, it's even poisonous to them. And then he takes the next wave again. And so then I went home, and I just couldn't stop thinking about this whole thing. And so I'm like, I'm drinking my own poison. My dad's off living his life, doing his thing, and I'm judging him based on my perspective of how wrong he is and how all this is. And every time I would see him, I would make just these perfect arguments of that he had no response, and he just didn't want to be around me because he didn't really want to explain anything. He was gonna do what he was gonna do, and so I decided that I needed to go apologize to him. And my wife will tell me, she's like, you don't remember anything. I think you already got dementia. I'm like, it's not that I don't remember anything. It's I have so much going on in my head. We'll have a fight in the morning and I'll come home all happy and she'll still be mad about it. And I haven't even thought about it since I left. Because I'm out there like taking cellar calls and drugs. And so I met him at the Crystal Court. It was the new mall across the street from South Coast Plaza. And like, I can remember I was so nervous and I was so like such a big moment in my life that I can remember the table, I can remember the people, I can remember how the clouds were flying over. And I said to him, and I could tell he came with his armor on because he knew we were gonna go to battle. And I just said, hey Pops, I gotta apologize to you. And he went from like having this armor to, what do you mean? I'm so sorry I've judged you, I'm so sorry how I've been. I don't wanna carry this anymore. Like it's too heavy for me to carry and it's keeping me from being me. Then all of a sudden we have this amazingly vulnerable conversation. And for the first time I listened, even though I didn't agree. And then for the remainder of his life, we had a great relationship. And the woman that he left my mom for, he's still with. And she became somebody just super important to me because she loved him in a way my mom didn't. And she loved him in a way that no man deserves to be And so, and I was really grateful in the later years because I probably would have been taking care of him, and she was. And so it's like, getting through your own personal stuff, I think is a really big thing. Because like for me to be at my best, I have to be free, you gotta be a duck. And so, you know, my wife and I always have these conversations because she likes to avoid conflict. I don't mean that with us, but like just the tough things in life, and as a real estate agent, we call it eating the frog. Like, do the tough stuff first, have the conversations you don't wanna have, because it just allows you to be free and easy of those things. So I would say that's an overall premise, but today, if I don't work out, I'm just not my best.
Yeah, so working out, it's kind of on that same notion, I guess, but, you know, exercise, what's a habit or a routine that you think is probably the most instrumental for you to show up and be you on any given day?
Well, so working out, like I have the same crew that I work out with every day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday. Sometimes I'm just wanna go in there and like drink coffee and shoot the bull. But then I think, you know, prayer, meditation, anything that kind of tries to get you out of the bad feelings. And it's funny because I just sold a house. This is a fun story. So somebody refers me, this Asian client, and he sold his company for like hundreds of millions. And he's living in like a $5 million house in Costa de Casa. And every house we find him, it's just he finds a reason not to buy it. So we finally put him in escrow in a house, which I don't know how we got him in this house, because his wife loved it. And I just kept on relying on that. And so then as we get into it, we go through the inspections, everything, I'm backing out. So I'm like, hey, I wanna show you a house. So I go and show him a house that's under construction for a client. And he's like, why are you showing me this house? And I'm like, because they're spending $1,746 a foot to build this house. The house you're buying, the lots be worth between 8 and 10 million. To rebuild that house today would be 11 to 12. You're in escrow at 17 million. Like, stop being a bitch. Buy your family, buy your wife the house, and that got him through it. And today I did the final walkthrough, and he's getting a loan, and he's like, but we still can get out of this. I'm like, sure you can, but you remove contingencies. So it's like, but I know, and I feel like telling him, like, because he's one of those guys that has a real estate fund that everything's about ROI. I'm like, this isn't about ROI, this is about ROL, return on lifestyle. And I said, the definition of a good deal is anything you bought 10 years ago. Are you gonna be here less than 10 years? Well, maybe like 5. I'm like, same thing, you're missing the point, right? So I would say, I don't know where that came from, but I'm sure.
I'll finish up, before we open it up maybe, but, more general question, but what is the long-term vision you have for your team, and what is the long-term vision you have, for the future of real estate?
So this year, we just wanna get to 1 billion sales for the first time. But long term, I'm gonna be the biggest real estate agent in the world just once. And I wanna have offices where I can go and like work and have fun too.
And then for the, we'll call it the industry itself, for the business itself, what do you think, how does this evolve further with, you know, technology, with, the availability of information? People can, you know, source things themselves, they can go on a Zillow or something. What is your long-term prediction for?
So real estate agents will never be replaced. I don't care what anybody says. This whole DOJ thing is the greatest thing that's ever happened in my business, and I'll tell you why. Because everybody calls me and says, hey, are you cooperating? And I say yes, and they say how much? And I say it depends on your offer. And if they give me a shitty offer, I give them a shitty commission on the counter back. What's great about this, when everybody's doing less deals, all of a sudden that agent gets up from their buyers, comes to my side and says, well, what do I gotta do to get a 2.5% commission? I'm like, get me on this price offer. And guess what they're doing? They're doing it. They're aligning themselves with us. I would say future, if you're not using AI, you need to start, like immediately. And if you don't know how important it is, I don't think AI will ever take our jobs, but the agents that are best with AI will be replacing all of their agents. It's just unbelievable. And you can save your profile, you can, I mean, you can take a request for a pair list. Who goes through this where you're like, okay, let me get a contractor out there to bid everything out, even though that contractor knows that you're not gonna use them for it, you can put your request for a pair into ChatGPT and it will come up with pricing for everything. And you can go deeper and deeper and prompt it, like you should be using AI for everything. I mean, I'll go, when I used to call Tom Ferry all the time, but now I'm going, I'm like, I have an Asian seller and a Persian buyer. These are the challenges that I'm having. We've done one counter and it will save your profile. What's the best tactic or strategy for me to talk about? And it will list it out. And if I don't like it, I'll say, well, this is a little different than that type of Persian buyer or whatever. And somehow it will come up with a script and a strategy that I couldn't pay somebody to come up with. So use it for everything. You can take a picture of your fridge of all the ingredients and say, what should I make for dinner? And it will give you a list of ingredients to make for dinner.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
Like, it's unbelievable. So if you're not using AI, you need to start using it all the time. Marketing strategies, how can I find the perfect buyer for this house? Just play with it and all of a sudden it will blow your mind on what comes up.
You know, the other thing, Tim, we can do is, Phil Jones's book, you know exactly what to say?
Yeah,
I tell him to reference that book and give me an answer to what you just said.
right. And I love that book.
You know, but Phil Jones, exactly what he said.
I mean, I think there's so many things that you can do, and like, there's so many like things with language and the way you state things and ask and script things that can help you get more deals. And tell ChatGPT how you're feeling. I'm feeling very hopeless right now in this real estate market. I have 7 listings, what should I do? And when you do, you'll be like, damn, that was good. Then do it.
You can even thank ChatGPT and it'll respond back as a
Right.
person.
I'll open it up to the audience if there's anything that we didn't touch on or anything you maybe wanna explore further, give you an opportunity to ask any questions that curiosities might have.
So how does an individual compete against a team?
I mean, that's one of those things where if I were an individual and I were getting the business, I would make a deal with a seller. I'll sell your house for free if I don't achieve this. I would say, I'll be here for everything. You don't need a team. I got everything they have. Like, I would make a structured compensation agreement that was nails, that I knew I could make money. And if you start saying, I'll work for free, not that I think you should, there's gotta be some sort of negotiation there. I would do something like that. But the difference, but it's getting really hard for individuals to compete with teams. Because it's like, I have 12 salaried people in my office for my 15 agents. I think that's more salaried people than Coldwell Banker has for the 500 agents, right? Because of every part of the process in our mission statement is to create record-breaking results, and to make every residential transaction perfect and predictable. How easy is that? It's impossible. Nothing's perfect or predictable about anything.
Yeah.
But it's like the more people you have, the better you are at setting expectations, and really exceeding expectations is the key. George.
Tim, let's say scenario, you're a $10 million a year agent, you're doing a half a dozen deals a year, you've been doing that for 10 years, and you wanna go to the next level to go to 20 million. So you're making 200,000 a year, but you wanna make 400,000 or 500,000 a year. What do you have to do to break through that barrier?
You need to hire your next person. You're doing too much of the stuff you shouldn't do. Right? Because like to get to 20 to 40, you just have to prospect more, you have to be in front of people, so you have to let go of I see so many agents that are doing stuff they just shouldn't do. Like, have somebody else do this that's better than you at doing it. Like, why are you doing this? I'm like, well, I can't handle 80,000 a year. I'm like, well, how many deals do you have to really do to pay them? And then once they realize that that person frees them up so much, they're either gonna get okay with their fear of prospecting and do better, or they're just gonna stick and stay with at that 29.
How does the agent he gets to 50 million, and then he wants to go to 100 million, because we get asked this all the time. And I go, you have to do more of what you're doing and build the team?
It's just like you need to figure out where your efforts are most highly compensated and do more of that. And the key to that is finding people to do. I don't email anymore. I legitimately don't. Email is the worst thing you can do. You sit down and you get stuck, then you read the news, then your email responding to people. It's just like, it's something that keeps me away from prospecting, talking to clients, getting new business, getting more appointments. It's like we gotta give up things that we know are keeping us from better things.
Good advice.
Team, Tim, what are you looking for when you're bringing on a new member?
Probably the biggest thing is they always have to be the solution, not the problem.
So for in your existing team?
Yeah, I mean, so agents are different than like my administrative, but there's not one of my administration. I always say your ego is not your amigo. Like, don't have an ego. We're service people. I'll go put a sign up. I'll go do, there's no work that I wouldn't do, and there's no work that you should be too good to do. Like, we're here to serve people, and we're totally overpaid for what we do. Because the one industry, we've seen a little compression, but what industry can you still make 2.5 to 5% a transaction on a $15 million listing? Sometimes I feel like we should get arrested for it. Like our daily commute is driving up and down PCH showing homes. This is not tough work. We're not schlepping tar in 120 degree weather. We are, I mean, this is a beautiful, beautiful job.
So I have 2 questions.
Okay.
Are you still coaching with Tom?
Yes.
And on prospecting, is your prospecting, like, are you hardcore time blocked, or are you just kind of
No, I'm
do
just
it,
always
wing it?
prospecting.
Okay.
And it's gotten to the point where like my assistant, my chief of staff, they're like, no, I'll take this off your plate. You go make these calls. And they know what calls I need to make. And you know how it goes. Like when you have a bustling business, it's like when you have 30 calls to make in a day, it's like half the time, like how can I make these calls and still be authentic and friendly and loving, but still get through the rest of the calls? You know what I mean? With everything coming in. So it's like, your key is to like clear your plate so all you're doing is prospecting, but have people, when you clear your plate, they're better at it than you are.
Back in, I was talking to you probably 2020, maybe 2021, you're so good with data, and you rattled me, because you told me about Orange County's inventory versus 2019 versus, it was probably 2021 at the time. And I would put 2019 as a seller's market, and you're like, yeah, Todd, there was 9,000 somethings to sell, or 7,500 to 9,000 somethings to sell in Orange County. In a seller's market, we're down to 4, then we went down to 2. We got lower than that, as you said. Now we're creeping back up, but it's still such an imbalance. You put a post out the other day that said, you know, it's kind of equaling out, or I don't want to paraphrase, but you just put it out, and you know, about the inventory climbing. Still under 4,000, correct? Like, it's
Correct.
still such an imbalance. But is that a relation to that many, so much fewer buyers still, that that's kind of our new balance?
Well, so I put 2 out. You'll see the one next week.
Yep.
But this was just like the truth of the market. 2024 demand was the worst we've seen in 3 decades. And it's just because interest rates had doubled the year before, businesses weren't doing that well, inflation's gone through the roof, and buying real estate just wasn't as popular. Like if you remember in 2022, buying real estate was super fun for everybody. You could get 1.875% financing, like who didn't want to buy it, right? But there was so much, and if you look at every post-election year, and this is where I think you go back, you see some real real downtrend in demand because the uncertainty of the next 4 years. But if you go back to the last 10 elections, it really didn't matter who won. It's just we know what to expect for the next 4 years. The reason I think there's still this uncertainty is the tariffs, the stock market, but I think all of this stuff is being engineered so people just aren't feeling super rich. And let's be honest, like, okay, 20% down in the stock market, are you really gonna take your money out of the stock market? Does it really matter? Probably not, but it's how they feel, right? And optically, but there's something that I've seen with so from 2012 or 2010 to 2020, 12% of the buyers that bought our listings were from out of state. 2020 through early 23, 46% of the buyers that bought our real estate were from out of state. Those buyers completely stopped last year, but they'll come back, right? So I think it's important to kind of understand the migration and that stuff to be able to talk about it.
Why do you think they stopped last year?
Just because it wasn't super exciting. I had one guy, his company was down 30%, blah, 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 and he's like, if you can guarantee that nobody knows that I'm buying this house, I'll buy it. I'm like, why? He's like, I'm gonna look like the biggest asshole if I buy a $50 million house in this, and I'm like, I can't guarantee that. Like, I can tell you what steps you can make, but I'm pretty sure somebody's gonna find out because you're a pretty well-known guy. So just the popularity of it, and when interest rates are 6.5%, who wants to buy a second home at 6.5%, right? It becomes a little tough to digest, that payment. And one of the biggest things keeping inventory down is that 72% of coastal Orange County has under 2.5% 30-year fixed financing. But I'm telling all of those people, you're missing the next spot. Like, I know you're loving this low payment, but you could afford a much higher payment, but by the time you're ready to sell your $7 million house, you're gonna have to jump up to like 12 to 14 to get to the next level. I don't care how low interest rates are, it's gonna be too much. So I'm telling him, make the step now, because you can still get that next step. I get it, your payment will be more, but as we continue to appreciate, with the Dana Point Harbor, with everything going, we will continue to be one of the top major metropolitan areas to buy a second home in, just because of the safety, the climate, the lifestyle. But it's just that buyer has been frozen for the last 18, 24 months.
We're still seeing multiples on homes priced correctly.
Right.
It's still buyer demand is outpacing inventory, even though it's climbing all that ish. It depends on the home,
But so the problem is what we saw in 2023 and 24 is a deceleration in appreciation. We didn't see prices go down, but every seller still thinks that their house is 30% more than it should be, because you guys see it. I look at the hot sheet every day, and I'll see stuff that's priced exactly right, that's still higher than comps have ever been, and I'm like, that's gonna sell by tomorrow, and it does. Because it's like in the strike zone where the rest of the stuff is like 20, 30% more. Now, I don't believe that necessarily in the 25 million plus space. I think there's a lot of listings that are priced right, it's just the market's not there. And so in that situation, it's either time or price. If you wanna sell faster, and there's reasons to do that, you're gonna have to undercut the market. If you don't, you're gonna have to wait. Wait.
Do you use a checklist for all aspects of your business, buyers, sellers, escrows, and so forth?
I mean, for the most part, yes. Do I have a physical checklist? I mean, my office does, for sure. Like, everything should be perfect and predictable.
Do you use a specific computer program, database?
I mean, I don't use anything on a computer. I literally don't ever get on a computer, but yes, we have a lot of different, I don't even know, we use Asana for all of our teams. Yeah, I don't even know what you use.
Can you talk a little bit more about marketing to out-of-area potential buyers
I can.
and what that looks like?
So it's very, very simple to find solutions to target people digitally outside the area, be it zip code, be it income, be it second homes, be it jet owners, be it, you can use a company called Simplify where you can geofence any physical location. Meaning, I could geofence this physical location. If you walk through it with your phone and you search, I bid to show up in your search engine. So there's a million things, they're very expensive, and you have to have not only the manpower, because you have to have the right ads that will attract with the right kind of catch. So you're A/B testing, you're making ads, but it can be very, very, very effective. And I would say my top 10 sales, you know, in my career have all come from solutions like that, of people that weren't necessarily looking for a house like that.
And do you have a bottom threshold of what homes you'll do that with?
Well, so when you have as many listings as we do, you can do it. It's expensive to do for one listing,
Right.
but if you subsidize on 70,
Volume.
no. So it's like, we try to figure out like who's the demographic. Let's geofence private schools in LA, country clubs, whatever. Do you know what I mean? But there's a lot of digital, and go to ChatGPT and ask it,
Yeah.
what digital strategy can I use to sell this listing? Who are the companies that are best? This is my budget. Do that stuff. Because all of a sudden you're doing things, and truthfully, I don't wanna be negative, but ever since print died, a lot of agents just started spending money on marketing. Like I was on a panel with 5 of the top agents in the nation, and 3 of the gals said, I haven't spent $10,000 on a listing, more than $10,000 on a listing in the last 5 years. I mean, I've spent $150,000 on a listing within a, right? So it's like, they're just not marketing, and so what they're doing is inputting the MLS and hoping Redfin, Zillow, Trulia get you the buyer, which, yeah, it could get you the buyer, but if you're hunting for buyers that could be a match for, that's not gonna work.
Thanks.
Yes.
So imagine that you are starting today in a farm with well-established agents there. What would be your approach to penetrate?
Well, I would first look at the farm. Any farm that has any agent that has more than 30% market share, I don't farm. And if you have 2 of those that are 50 or 60%, find another farm. Like, go and look at the data. There's farms all over, and don't be too good to go to South Coast Metro, whatever, because it's like, find farms where you can get traction, because it's tough. Like, Dawn and I were talking, at one time, I mean, there was like 2 or 3 listings on Babel Island. Like, what do you do? Well, you either are so rich like Dawn, it doesn't matter. You just take a break, or you find other areas that you can farm. But it's like, I would really look at I would look at, and kind of our thing, if there's not at least 5% turnover in a farm, and you go through all these things, that's not a farm you should be farming, because you're wasting money. But that's what I mean, so you gotta be very intentional about what you're doing, and you can't be too good. I would sell mobile homes if that's what that was. Like, it's just like, whatever you can sell, you sell. Right? Everybody good? Thank you for having me.